Let's try this again. What is this? Where we at? Let's see. Okay. Let's bring this laptop towards me. And let's talk about some stuff. Let's see who's online. Go to the where we at? View on watch page. Make sure I can be heard. Okay, Merry Christmas, D-Balls. What's good? Just getting some settings sorted there. This is a exclusive little stream here, Christmas Day. For everybody around the world who's enjoying the time off. And for everybody around the world who has to work, shout out to you too. Shout out to everybody. Okay, let me just post it here on Patreon, the link to the stream, and we will get cracking. Okay, where we at? Put the link to the stream here, 1 second. Yes, D-Balls, yeah, I had to bring the fire on the lineal. Because you know what it is? I logged into Facebook and all I saw, because you know I don't go on Facebook every single day. I leave it some days and all kind of different posts accumulate. And right now, oh man, the Fury fanboys are on some stuff. They're on some strong stuff, and they are going in with this whole lineal nonsense, talking, you know, making excuses for him when he said that he's the lineal, going back to John L. Sullivan when he ain't. It's crazy, man. I don't know why they do it. I don't know why they do it. Tyson Fury is a tremendous fighter, but you can't sit here and say that Tyson Fury is the most truthful fighter, because he's definitely not. You know, it is what it is. Right, bear with me a sec. Okay, just setting this up to Patreon. Where we at? Okay, publish. Let's see, I'm gonna be on here for a minute. I'm just sharing the link so I can get a few people in the chat. Where we at? Okay, this should be... All right, good to go. Yeah, D-Balls says, you know I'm a Fury fan, but it is what it is. The guy is trying to sell. Yeah, he's trying to sell it. He's trying to sell it, and good luck to him. It's just the people who buy the stuff that he's selling. Like Tyson Fury is not the first fighter to try and sell this lineal thing as being more legit than having an alphabet title and he won't be the last. He didn't invent it. Many fighters have tried to do it. It is what it is. Tyson Fury is a fantastic fighter, but he's a human being. I just can't deal with the deification of Tyson Fury, the way his fans are behaving in a cultish-like manner. I don't mean all his fans, but a large proportion of his fans. They've got this cultish mentality where Tyson Fury is like this cult figure, like literally a David Koresh. You know, them ones, Jim Jones, cult leader where he can walk on water and feed the 5,000 with a fish and 2 loaves and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And so they act as though Tyson Fury has never said a lie in his life. He never does anything wrong. Excuses can be made for all his behavior. Like, he is the only champion. All the other champions don't. Oh, come on, man. Come on, stop it. I can't take it. But yeah, we got loads of other stuff to talk about anyway. You know, I'm going to be talking about Tyson Fury all day long when I do the boxing live stream, because I will be live streaming on my boxing channel, the live streaming boxing channel later on. But this is just for you Patreon guys. So shout out to everybody. Hopefully you're enjoying yourselves today. Yes, Devon. Big up, big up. Boxing 365. It's about time and says, you're going to make a video on Brazil versus Negron. I didn't actually see Brazil versus Negron, you know. I saw the knockout, but that's about all I saw. John 99. Yes, what's up, what's up? Hope you guys are enjoying your time off. If you are having time off, if not, then make that money and do your thing. Yes, Denzel, big up. Big up, big up. Denzel says, yo, big up Hatman and Merry Christmas. Man, and thanks for the Patreon work this year. Been an avid listener. I'm glad you appreciate the content, brother. And I'm going to try and make it bigger and better for 2019 because, you know, the thing that's been holding me back in terms of taking my Patreon and also taking my live streaming on YouTube to the next level over the past year or so is I was living abroad, and where I was living, the internet was atrocious. So it was impossible to live stream. I mean, just getting standard videos uploaded was a hassle sometimes. But now that I'm back in the UK and I've got this suit top, you know, top of the range internet, I should be good to go. I should be able to do the interviews, not only interviews here on Patreon with all kind of interesting and different people, but also interviews with boxers again on my YouTube channels, the live stream channel, and also my main channel. So yeah, should be all systems go in 2019 and diversifying the content and doing all kind of new different stuff now that I've got my internet situation sorted out. Because any of you who have ever had to deal with third world internet, then you know what I'm talking about. Oh my gosh, third world internet. It's like the old dial-up connection from 2002. That's their version of broadband, you know, third world internet. It's terrible. So whoa, hang on. Okay, big up Mohammed, big up Afro Soul. Devon Sinclair says that I got banned from Facebook for uploading. Oh, okay, the White versus Chisora knockout. Okay, you don't know if you'd be allowed back. Oh, shame. Well, can't you just sign up a next account, a next Facebook account, and do it that way? Wow, they're banning people now from uploading copyrighted content on Facebook. See, they never used to do that. On Facebook, they used to just take your post down, but they never used to ban you. Now they're banning people. Oh my gosh. Maybe that's because of the Article 13 that's coming in. You know, they're starting early before it even comes in. Maybe that's what it is. Henry Atkins, yes. Merry Christmas. How are you, sir? Max Camillo. Shout out to everybody. Hope you're all enjoying yourselves. Is anybody working today? It's about time and says, get Jarrell Miller interview up. You know what? I've actually been hollering at Jarrell Miller for a couple years now. Jarrell Miller used to watch my videos. I remember him commenting. His comments are probably still up. I did a video, I think it was after his fight against, what's that journeyman called? The African journeyman. I think it's from Cameroon. The one that Huey Fury fought, the one that Amir Mansour knocked out. What's his name? Fred Cassie. I did a post-fight video for Jarrell Miller, Fred Cassie, and Jarrell Miller turned up on the video leaving comments, all right? And it was the real Jarrell Miller. A couple times after that, I tried to holler at him for an interview, but he just blanked me. I've tried to holler at him on Twitter a few times, you know, different places on social media. I've tried to chat to him, private message him, and ask him for an interview, but yeah, he's not getting back to me. Maybe he didn't like what I said in the video. I don't know. At the time, he acted like what I said in the video was funny. And I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, but I just talk in a certain way where I'm very descriptive about the people I'm talking about. And so Jarrell Miller, after the Fred Cassie fight, I was like, yeah, Jarrell Miller's fat, but he can fight. And I'd like to see him fight the other fat boy, Andy Ruiz, because Andy Ruiz can fight too. Them fat boys can fight. Don't think because they're fat that they can't fight. That's basically what I said in that video. And he turned up in the comment section and said, oh, you funny, you got jokes. But then he seemed to be cool, you know, in the comments and stuff like that. So who knows, man? Maybe it was that, or maybe he's just, I don't know, busy, or hasn't seen my comments, or just don't feel like doing, I don't know what it is. But yeah, I'd like to get Jarrell Miller for an interview. He seemed like he'd be a good interview guest. So I'll try again and see what he says. Because look, I've been fat before. You know, it's not like I've never had a belly and been fat. I've been fat. So, you know, when I remember when I used to train at Fitzroy Lodge, the head trainer at the time, a guy called Mick Carney, he was also very direct like that. So one time I came in the gym after putting on loads of weight over summer, and he just looked at me when I came in, and before I could get to the changing room, he grabbed me by the arm and he's like, go over there. And he pointed to the scales. He you know, put me on the scales. He looked at how much I weighed and how much I'd put on over the summer. And he was like, you fat fucking bastard. Get the fuck out of this gym. Go and lose some weight before you come back. Like, this is not a fitness gym. This is a boxing gym. Go and lose some fucking weight, you fat bastard. That's what he told me. And Mick was like that. Mick was a very direct, he's dead now, you know, but he was a very direct person like that. So, you know, when I was fat, it's not a problem. That's someone say you fat bastard. It don't offend me. But some people get offended by stuff like that, you know. Yes. All right. Let me pop out this chat window here so I can read all your chats properly, so I don't lose them. Okay, who you got? Francisco Rocha. Francisco Rocha says, do you do any tabletop gaming? Tabletop gaming? As in what? Playing pool, snooker? As in what? DJ Slicks. Yes. DJ Slicks. Pick up every time. Henry Atkins, yes. It's about timing. Alchemy Diagrams. Merry Christmas to you, Hatman. Your Patreon channel was fire. Touched on some deep topics this year. Yes. Thank you. Much appreciated. Glad you're enjoying it. DJ Slick says, is Article 13 really happening with the YouTube shutdown? Well, I mean, it all remains to be seen what's going to happen with Article 13. I've heard that they've softened the language a little bit, but it's still so ambiguous that they could apply Article 13 as and when they want to. It's kind of like the terms of service for a lot of different websites like YouTube. They're so ambiguous, they can basically pick and choose who they apply their terms of service to. And that's the way the revised version of Article 13 seems to be. They've made it less, they've made it so that YouTube are not going to be as culpable as the original version of Article 13, but YouTube will still basically have discretion to use Article 13 to shut whatever channels down they want, you know, or demonetize whatever channel. If they feel like this potentially could catch us a lawsuit, this channel, we're just going to shut you down. But this other channel over here, we're going to let them go and do their thing. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It's going to be interesting. And that's another reason. I made the other channel, the live streaming channel, for several different reasons. But one of the reasons that I made the live streaming boxing channel is because the only thing on that channel, the live streaming boxing channel, is stuff which could not be touched at all by Article 13. because all I show on the screen on a live streaming boxing channel is the YouTube chat box. That's it. There is nothing else there. So there's no way that any Article 13 business, you know, they could look at that channel and say, oh, well, we don't know about this, we don't know about that. You know, it's a bit of a gray area. They couldn't do that with my live streaming channel. Everything on there is just YouTube chat box. There's nothing else that appears on screen other than the thumbnail, you know, which is just some type that I made on Photoshop. So that channel is future proof. But then again, if Article 13 gets enforced in its original form, then it won't matter if you future-proof your channel, because they'll just stop everybody. Just as a matter of course, if you're in the EU and your channel is not corporate affiliated, they'll just shut you down. Like they'll stop you uploading regardless of what's on your channel, because you might upload something with copyrighted content. You understand? This is what YouTube have said about Article 13, that it could be that draconian whereby they can't take any chances. So they're just going to stop the majority of channels in the EU uploading anything. We'll see. All right. Who else is here now? Abs TV says, Hatman, you fat bastard. I'm actually getting in pretty decent shape, to be fair, right now. Graham Coleman says, Hatman, when is the Kilbrook podcast coming? No pressure, but dying to know all about that. Yes. Good thing you reminded me. The Kell Brook podcast, I think I'll do it next. I think I'll do it on Thursday, because what I want to do is actually play the WhatsApp audio clip. Yeah, if you hear this WhatsApp audio clip, it's somebody who clearly knows Kell Brook, because there's way too much detail for this person to not know Kell Brook. They clearly know all kind of different characters, you know, individuals that Kell Brook knows. And you're going to hear some crazy stuff in that audio clip if you ain't already heard it. Yeah, because the audio clip is doing the rounds. This WhatsApp voice note. But it's crazy the stuff that he says in there about Kell Brook. He gives the real reason that Kell Brook had a car crash. Some of you may remember that prior to the Golovkin fight, Kell Brook had a car crash. He crashed in, I think it was it an X5? The guy says in the voice note, it was either an X5 or a Range Rover. Kell Brook had a car crash before the Golovkin fight. And this guy in the voice note reveals the reason that car crash happened. And the reason is because of some gay shit going on. Oh my God, yeah. And he reveals a whole heap of other stuff, so I'll definitely try to get to that on Thursday. So it's Tuesday today, Christmas Day, Thursday the 27th. Yeah, I'll try to get that on Thursday. G-Man Boxing says, Hatman, happy Christmas. Did you see Frampton Warrington? I haven't seen it yet, no. I was searching for it the other day, but I've been so busy the past few days. I was searching for it the other day, and I noticed they had it on Daily Motion. Hopefully it's still up there, so I'll get to watch it. I also want to see Nathan Gorman's fight against Kajanu. I want to see how he looked there. Why am I getting a message from YouTube here in the live chat? Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our community guidelines. Okay, so that's all it is. Yeah. You guys will definitely get the Brook podcast. You'll get the download on the situation with Kell Brook, what they're saying on the streets in Sheffield. Because I've been contacted by several people over the years about Kell Brook. Several people from Sheffield, not one person, several people from Sheffield over the years have contacted me behind the scenes about Kell Brook and the allegations that Khan is making. So when Khan said the stuff that he said, it didn't come as a surprise or shock to me, because I've been hearing this from people from Sheffield for years now. Like, it's not something surprising at all to me. DJ Slick says, the line about the age with girls had me Going for a good 10 minutes. Yes, yes, DJ Slicks. You know, you got to do what you got to do. You got to be practical in this life. So I know it sounds all cute to be telling everybody the truth all the time, but sometimes the truth ain't good enough. That's the reality. It would be nice. I would prefer to live in a world where you just tell girls the truth and it's all good. But if you do that, I mean, look, it depends on the circles that you move in at the end of the day. It depends on the circles you move in. But one thing I can tell you about life is that without a certain amount of luck, you're not going to get anywhere. And there's a line in Scarface where he says, you make your own luck. Well, you can make your own luck to a certain extent, but you also need to be born in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing around the right people. And sometimes you need to have the right level of innate ability and talent, you know? And if you don't, then you got to fake it till you make it to some extent. And certainly when it comes to, women in this day and age, I mean, they want the earth, moon, and the stars a lot of the time. And so for a man, if you want to be 100% honest, especially in the early days, like if you get to know a girl, you can start being more truthful and revealing things or whatever the case may be. But if you're a man and you want to have your success rate high in terms of numbers that you're getting from girls and all that kind of stuff, in a place like London anyway, I don't know how it is where other people live. Maybe girls are a lot nicer and stuff like that. But in London, girls are, a lot of girls, a very large proportion of girls, particularly if they're average to good looking girls, they're going to be very superficial. They're going to have a very long list of criteria that you need to fulfill before they'll even look at you. You understand? And so when it gets to that stage, well, you got to tell them what they want to hear a lot of the time. And that's why I've had success in my life when it comes to females, because I know what to say, what not to say, to whichever girl. So sometimes you got to tell them what they want to hear, even if it ain't true. I'm not saying every time, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Unless you don't want to get nobody. For some guys, listen, there are certain guys out there who, if they were not lying to girls, they wouldn't get any girls. So it's a choice for a man, innit? There's certain men who, if they don't tell lies to these girls and tell them what they want to hear, they're not going to get any girls at all. Some guys are not blessed. So it is what it is. Darrell Carter says, how long does it take you to get in shape? It depends how out of shape I've got, but it definitely takes me a lot longer now to get in shape than it did when I was in my 20s. In my 20s, I could lose, I'm not joking, I could lose a stone, 14 pounds in 3-4 weeks. And I know that sounds crazy. I know you guys probably, oh, that's nonsense. I'm telling you, when I was training all the time in my 20s, I could lose 14 pounds in 3-4 weeks. I did that several times. But once I moved up into my 30s and, and on, it's definitely a lot harder to lose weight now. And it takes me longer and I have to be more disciplined. Because when I was in my 20s, I could eat all kinds of crap, train and still be in shape, still have abs and all that kind of stuff. But now, as you get older, your metabolism slows. So you got to train different as well. I noticed that doing a lot of cardio, once I reached my mid 30s and on, doing a lot of cardio wasn't really shifting weight. So I started having to do a lot more strength work, because I never really used to do a lot of strength work other than push-ups. I never touched weights or anything like that through most of my 20s and into my early mid 30s. I never really touched any weights. But after that, I realized that the cardio wasn't really shifting the weight that quick. So I started incorporating weights for the first time ever, really. And I've noticed that the weights get the weight off, get the fat off, like way quicker than just doing cardio. I still do a certain amount of cardio, but I've incorporated a lot of weightlifting, and that helps to shift the fat a lot quicker. I was told about that by somebody who knows about weights, and they said, yeah, implement weightlifting into your workout and, you'll see. So, all right, we got quite a few people in here now. Shout out to everybody. Hope you guys are all enjoying your day. Luke B says, Hatman, who wins, White's brother or Shane Fury? I have no idea, but maybe they'll get it together one time, have a charity boxing match or a straightener on the cobbles. They're both very big lads. Shane Fury must be about, 6'5", and Dylan White's brother's about 6'7". So, yeah, they're both very big lads. I can tell you Dylan White's brother is no cupcake. I can definitely confirm that he's no cupcake. And Shane Fury obviously is no cupcake either. Comes from the traveling background. I'm sure he's had plenty of straighteners. I know he used to spar Tyson Fury here and there. Devon Sinclair says, have you listened to any Sam Harris or Jordan Peterson? Somebody asked me this the other day on Patreon and never actually got to the question. I haven't really listened to either of them in depth. I know who they are, but I haven't really listened to either of them in depth. All right, 1 second here, people. Where's my screen gone? Okay, sorry. I lost you guys for a second. Abs TV says, Abs Boxing TV even says, what's your go-to cheat meal? My go-to cheat meal? I don't really, I say cheat meal. To be honest with you, yeah, I eat pretty healthy most of the time. I don't eat, see, for me, certainly in my 30s, the issue for me has never been junk food because I don't really eat junk food that much. I might have the odd burger, but it'll usually be a flame grilled burger, even though, they still got bread and you don't know how good the quality of the beef is and all that kind of stuff. But that's few and far between. Most of the time, the issue for me is not eating bad food, it's just eating too much food. That's the issue. You have to be careful about how much food you're consuming. And certainly at my age, you really need to be going on the little meals, the little frequent meals rather than big meals. So, I don't know. I mean, I like most food. I like pizza. If you're talking about junk food, I like pizza, burgers. I don't really mess with fried chicken anymore, but I like pizza and burgers. When it comes to kebabs, I only eat shish kebabs. I don't have doner kebab and all that kind of stuff. So shish kebab is a fairly healthy meal, right? Because it's basically flame grilled meat with pita bread and salad. So John 99 says, Hatman, what do you think of the Floyd style pad work? I get the feeling it's for reflexes and muscle memory, but I'm not 100% sure. I've seen fighters today use it like out in the yard. Yeah, I think that the Mayweather style pad work, it has its place, but I don't think people should be using it wholesale everywhere. There is no one size fits all method to doing pads. But whenever a fighter is popular, you get thousands and thousands of copycats, trainers and fighters who try and emulate that fighter's technique, including their training methods. You saw this with Mike Tyson, you saw this with Muhammad Ali, you've seen it with Floyd Mayweather, so on and so forth. You saw it with Roy Jones. But most of the time, it doesn't work for most people, and they don't really understand why the training methods are even there in the first place. Like with Mayweather's style of doing pads, one of the reasons that Mayweather and his dad and his uncle developed that style of pad work is because Mayweather had very brittle hands. That's one of the reasons. That's also the reason. If you see Mayweather hitting the bag, he doesn't really hit the bag hard. He's tapping the bag most of the time to preserve his hands because he's got brittle hands. So he's training around a frailty. He's training around a fragility. He customized his training methods to compensate for the fact that his hands are brittle. A lot of people don't realize that. Okay, so that's one of the reasons that he does pads like that. Another reason is, yes, the muscle memory. To get you throwing punches with a particular technique without having to think about it. I remember Teddy Atlas saying that Costamado used to tell him, you need to drill these kids that you're teaching, Teddy, with this technique so much that they couldn't forget how to do it the right way, even if they wanted to. You understand? You need to drill the correct technique into them to the point where it's just automatic. They don't have to think about the way they're throwing the right hand. It's just automatic. And so the way Mayweather would do pads, the way he hits the bag, of course, there is an element of muscle memory there too. And also, I think it's a way of getting the mind used to the rhythm of boxing, if that makes sense. Because the way they do pads is very rhythmic. And so they want you to move your body in a rhythmic fashion when punches are coming at you, when you're punching back. You get into this kind of like rhythm when you're doing the Mayweather style pads. So that's another reason that they do it. It's to improve the hand-eye coordination in this fast rhythmic kind of pattern. You see, sometimes in a boxing ring, you can feel overwhelmed, okay? Particularly when you first start boxing and you got punches flying at you, you can feel overwhelmed. Another one of the reasons that Mayweathers do the pads the way they do is to get you used to constant motion in front of you, to get you to feel relaxed when there's constantly hands coming at you and hands around you, to get you to be relaxed in the eye of the storm. So there are many reasons why they do it, but like I say, there's no one-size-fits-all method to doing pads, and it's a mistake that people make, thinking that, okay, if I want to be the best, all I need to do is train like Mayweather, copy his technique, do everything that he does. It ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work. For most people, they're better off finding a different way, or they can take certain things from Mayweather and other things from other fighters. So you gotta find yourself as a fighter. You can't try and be exactly like somebody else. You have to know what you're good at. You have to know what your innate qualities are as a fighter, your innate aptitudes, and build a style around that. All right, let's see what else we got here. DJ Slick says, so you think social media has birthed plenty more narcissists? Hell yeah. Okay, he's asking Boxing 365. Well, I definitely agree. Abs Boxing TV says, Hatman, you heard 21 Savage's album. I think you'll like it. I've never heard a 21 Savage album in my life. I'm an old man. I don't really listen to new music. I hear the odd tune here and there. You know, if I'm in the car or at the gym, they play music and stuff like that. But I don't know who the artists are most of the time. And yeah, I don't really listen to new music like that. I've heard of 21 Savage, but I definitely ain't heard his album. You know, one of the things that I'm struggling with these days is all the music sounding electronic and auto-tuned and all that kind of stuff. I remember when auto-tune first came out, I actually quite liked it because it was something new. And actually they used to use the vocoder on the West Coast. Okay, back in the days in the 1990s, they would use something called a vocoder. And the vocoder gave a similar kind of sound to auto-tune, which would come much later. And that was, in fact, I think what they were trying to do with auto-tune is they were trying to recreate the vocoder sound. But it sounded a bit different, and I think that it had a more melodic quality to it, the auto-tune. Because auto-tune obviously is a pitch correction software. But the way it's used today is they don't use it to correct pitch or just to correct pitch. They also use it to give the voice a robotic sound. And so when people first started doing it, I thought it was cool. But now everybody does it. It's just everywhere. Every track you hear, whether it's an Afrobeat song, whether it's drill, whether it's mainstream rap, R&B, everybody has this auto-tune on their voice. And I can't listen to it no more. I can't listen to every song with an auto-tune voice. I'm tired of it. And all the beats are 808 drums with synthesizers, and there's no live instruments anymore or even samples. or very little of it anyway. So I find it hard to listen to most new music now because it all sounds the same. Literally all sounds the same. I'm sure there are talented artists out there, but the production style and the auto tune for me is just, yeah, it was cool to begin with, but I'm just tired of it now. Shout out to Graham Coleman. Graham says, if you don't mind asking, can I ask why you moved back to London? Well, I'm a nomad. I've been a nomadic person for much of my life. I like to move different places. I never like to stay in one place for too long. And I had a few business things to sort out here in the UK. You know, the whole time when I lived abroad, I still had a business in the UK, registered business in the UK. So one of the reasons was for business. A few things I got to sort out. And then I'll be away again on my travels before long. So I'll be here for, I don't know, 6 months, maybe a year or so. Then I'll be off again. It's about time. It says, do you think fighters who lack defense and athleticism will develop a better chin as a result? Good question. I think some of them can. Yeah, I think some of them can, but a lot of them will just end up getting knocked out loads. Because punch resistance is partly mental, but it's also partly physical. Some people physically are going to be able to take a better punch than other people. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. So there are some people who just don't have the natural physical components to be able to take a good shot. And they might be able to improve their punch resistance slightly through exposure to getting hit, but they're still going to be weak around the chin. I mean, look at Amir Khan. Amir Khan's been hit plenty of times in his career, and he's still got a poor chin. You know, you're never going to turn an Amir Khan or a David Price into a Triple G in terms of their punch resistance, regardless of how you have them fight. Devon Sinclair says, do you still have any hopes for George Arias? He was very active this year, so hopefully he can continue next year. I'd love to see Arias versus Michael Hunter. Yeah, I don't know what's happened to George Arias. They say, well, you say he was active this year, but he's not with a major promoter anymore, is he? Because he was with Bob Arum. I think he left Bob Arum, as far as I'm aware. So without a major promoter, that means he's not getting a lot of money. And that probably means he's working a day job and can't be boxing full time. There's a good chance anyway, unless he's signed with some other major promoter that I'm not aware of. If he's with some small time promoter, he's probably working a day job. And I don't think he's that young, is he, George Arias? So yeah, I'd like to see him, if possible, sign with a big promoter. And then maybe I'd have a bit more hope for him. We'll see. John99 says, what do you think of Billy Joe Saunders' return? I didn't see it. I haven't seen any of the fights on the BT Sports show. I heard that Martin Murray lost to Hassan and Dam and announced his retirement afterwards. I heard Nathan Gorman won on points and Josh Warrington beat Frampton, which is obviously a very good result. And you know what? I hold my hands up and I'll say I underestimated Josh Warrington this year because I did not think he would beat Lee Selby. And even after he beat Selby and really embarrassed him, I still was thinking, he ain't going to beat Frampton, no. And apparently he just turned up and whooped Frampton. So I got to take my hat off to Josh Warrington. Proved me wrong twice this year. Proved to be a much higher level fighter than I ever gave him credit for. So, you know, hats off to him. And I'll try to watch the fight over the next couple of days and, you know, give you guys a belated post-fight video for that. But yeah, he's done very, very well, Josh Warrington. He's got a big fan base up there in Leeds. And he's just going from strength to strength. Going to be interesting to see what Carl Frampton does from here. In the little clip that I did see of the Josh Warrington-Frampton fight, one of the things that struck me is how much bigger Josh Warrington appeared to be than Frampton, which is something I didn't expect. I didn't expect him to look so much bigger than Frampton. Okay. DJ Slick says, Hatman, speak on the real reason why Christmas is on December 25th when Jesus wasn't even born in December. Well, Christmas was a pagan Roman holiday called, I think it's pronounced Saturnalia or Saturnalia, excuse me. And it was a pagan holiday that was celebrated many parts of Europe, which around December 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, it was celebrating the winter solstice, basically. And so Christianity was merged with the pre-existing pagan beliefs, and that's where you get Christmas from. That's why there are so many non-Christian symbols and what else can I say? Symbols and things like the Christmas tree and stuff like that, which don't directly relate to the story of Jesus, because these things don't come from the story of Jesus. This is all stuff that was grafted onto to the religion by the Romans. So that's why it's December 25th. But Christians will say, hey, since we don't know the real birthday of Christ, we'll just go ahead and use Christmas as his birthday anyway, because we don't know it, so why not use Christmas? That's what most Christians say, and fair play to them, because religion is about belief at the end of the day, isn't it? It's not really about what you can empirically prove. It's about what you believe. That's what it is. And the same way as I've mentioned with a lot of stuff that goes on in science, like the Big Bang, the theory of evolution. And look, microevolution, I think, is definitely provable. But when it comes to macroevolution, at least the macroevolution of human beings, I'm not convinced yet. I'm not saying the macroevolution of human beings is definitely false, but I've yet to be convinced by it. And some would even say the macroevolution of species is yet to be conclusively proven. But, I haven't looked into it deeply enough. Anecdotally, or superficially, sorry, when I look at macroevolution of animals, you do wonder where the intermediary species are, right? Because when they tell you things like a blue whale evolved from a shrew-like creature billions of years before, at what point did the shrew-like creature develop into a bigger animal that went into the sea, and then did the legs disappear in one generation? Or was there, millions of years where they were just stumps instead of legs? Do you understand what I'm saying? Or, how did it go? Where are those intermediary species? That's the question that a lot of evolution skeptics ask. Where are the intermediary species? Because they make these bold claims like these giant animals came from these tiny little animals, which were a completely different type of animal, like a shrew into a whale. You understand what I'm saying? So, yeah, anyway, how the hell did I start talking about evolution? Oh, yeah, that's what it was. I'm saying that in science, people believe a lot of theories. The theory, the Big Bang theory is probably the most, I don't want to say outlandish, but unsubstantiated theory in science, which is widely believed, is the Big Bang theory. Because just think about it. If mainstream science claims that the universe is as big as they claim it is, which is so large, your brain isn't even capable of imagining how large the universe is, because it's so vastly enormous, according to mainstream science, okay? And we live on an infinitesimally small speck of dust in the middle of nowhere called planet Earth, which is it's like 1/billionth of a pinhead. I've heard somebody do the analogy that if the universe was the size of the Earth would be the size of 1/billionth of a pinhead. Okay, so from our 1/billionth of a pinhead in relation to the size of the universe, how on earth can we, from our vantage point, when we've been here a millisecond? Okay, according to mainstream science, the universe is tens of billions of years old. We've been here for a literal millisecond, and we are claiming, even though we've never been off our planet physically, as humans, we are claiming that we know how this enormous universe started from our tiny little speck of dust, the billionth of the size of a pinhead. It's ridiculous to think that you know how the universe, I don't care what measurements you take or any of that rubbish. If the universe is as old as they say it is, and it's as big as they say it is, there could be all kind of different phenomena out there which could account for what we observe from our platform on the earth. Do you understand? It may appear from our vantage point to look as though stars are moving away from each other, or this is happening or that is happening. But until we get out there in the universe and go across the universe and observe things much closer up, then we can't know if there are not phenomena affecting what we're perceiving from Earth. Do you understand? Like, it's just, when you think about it logically, what mainstream science teaches with regards to the Big Bang and all this kind of stuff, it's outlandish. You understand? It's unsubstantiated. It is. The Big Bang is no more credible, as far as I'm concerned, than Genesis in the Bible. Seriously, because you're talking about stuff that happened tens of billions of years ago, billions and billions of miles away, places we've never been, never seen, don't understand, but yet whatever. You know, I can't say the Big Bang is definitely not true 100%, but the evidence for it is unbelievably flimsy. And so at least with religion, they're claiming, okay, they're claiming some fantastic things happened as well, right? But they're not claiming it happened billions of light years away. They're claiming it happened right here on Earth a couple thousand years ago. So yeah, you might say their claims are outlandish, but they're more grounded in some kind of reality. Whereas scientific claims like the Big Bang, it's like, it's so far out there for people to believe that this actually happened with conviction. It just shows you that science itself is a kind of a religion, because it's predicated on belief. The Big Bang is predicated on people's belief in it. You can't prove the Big Bang. You couldn't even come close to proving it. It's all predicated on belief. Anyway, let me stop waffling about the Big Bang. DJ Slick says, so it's safe to say Hatman isn't a flat earther. I'm not convinced at all, no. Well, I'm not a flat earther, but I have looked into the flat earth with an open mind. I've looked into it with an open mind, but I'm not convinced by the flat earth, I can tell you that. And here's the thing, I'm not saying that the universe is as big as mainstream science says it is. I'm not saying that the nature of the universe is the way it's described in mainstream science. I'm just telling you, this is what they believe. And based upon what they believe, if you follow the logic of what they believe, the Big Bang is absurd. If the universe is as big as they say it is, and it's as old as they say it is, how could you possibly know how it started if the Earth is like the billionth, the size of a pinhead in relation to the universe, in relative size being the size of the Earth? Like, how could you possibly even come out your mouth claiming to know how the universe started if it's that big and it's that old? It's ridiculous if you just think about it logically. Okay, Errol Spence Jr. says, how do you tell when a lady is cheating in a relationship? Also, how do you tell when the lady is no longer interested in you? I mean, different girls, different situations. As far as I'm aware, nobody's ever cheated on me, as far as I know. So that's all I can tell you about that. But I'm very picky when it comes to girls I would have a relationship with. A lot of other guys are not picky, so they don't see the warning signs in the beginning. They go for girls who are going to be trouble. If you go for a girl who's very materialistic, that's a bad start to begin with. If you go for a girl who's always out raving, nightclubs and all this kind of stuff, That's another bad start, because these are girls who are going to put themselves in situations where they've got loads of other options, where they're around people who impress them on a regular basis. So if you go for a girl like that, you know, there's a lot more chance that she's going to have a wandering eye and look elsewhere. So the girls I've had relationships with, I tend to go for the homely type. The type of girl who they're very close to their mum. They like to stay at home and cook and all that. That's the kind of girls I go for when it comes to actually being in a relationship. You understand? I go for them kind of girls because I can see what kind of person they are before I get with them. I can see they're really family orientated. They like to stay at home. They like being around their family, etc. And so girls like that, I'm not saying they never cheat. They do. But there's less likelihood that you're going to have problems. You understand? Because you might be with a girl who's a party girl who is a bit materialistic and stuff like that. And maybe she's faithful. But because she's always out and about, you might start getting paranoid. And you might be, oh God, she's doing this, she's cheating because of this, that, and the other. She might not be, you know, but to save yourself the hassle of being paranoid or getting cheated on, try go for a girl who is just more reliable from the get-go, who's more easy to read from the get-go. Then you won't have to worry so much in the first place. But, you know, signs for a girl cheating, maybe she used to talk to you a certain amount and she ain't talking to you so much no more. Maybe she used to be really like your best friend, and all of a sudden you feel her drifting away and she's just not as close to you anymore. Maybe she's lying and stuff like that. Maybe she don't want to sleep with you as much as she used to. You know them ones like where you still want to sleep with her, but she's like, nah, I'm good. But then again, there could be other reasons for that. So yeah, the best advice I would give is choose wisely in the first place. A lot of guys, particularly young guys, they are bamboozled by a girl's looks. Literally bamboozled. And they're so bamboozled that they will overlook loads of different warning signs because of the girl's looks. And they'll do whatever it takes to get with the girl in the first place, and then after that, to try and keep her happy. You know, and this girl will have them guys wrapped around their little finger. Don't be in that situation. Just don't be. Because even if she ain't cheating, you're probably going to be so paranoid that you'll make her unhappy. You know, and then she'll just break up with you even when she weren't cheating. If you're somebody who doesn't really care and you can have a girl who goes out on parties and all that kind of stuff, and you know, you're happy doing your own thing, you might be cheating on her, right? So you don't care about what she's doing. If you're that kind of guy, then hey, maybe you can have that kind of girl who's a party girl. She's out and about, she's materialistic, whatever the case may be. Maybe you can have that kind of girl and it'll be okay because you don't care, you know. But in them situations, the girl herself ends up caring, because girls are funny. When you don't care about them, that's when they care about you. Yeah, that's where the saying comes from, treat them mean, keep them keen. When you all of a sudden don't want to be around a girl, it makes them feel insecure. They're thinking, wow, why is this guy not paying me no attention anymore? Why is he being like this? Like, I don't get it. And that's when they come and seek you out and try and find out why you're not giving him attention. So with one of those kind of girls, if you are a Jack the Lad type and you don't really care about what she's doing, she might start caring about what you're doing and make your life a misery. So yeah, a bit of forward thinking is the best way. Prevention is better than cure. It's better to get with the right kind of girl in the first place rather than getting with the wrong kind of girl and trying to patch it up along the way when there are problems. So that's the best advice I would give. Luke B says, Hatman, did you ever bounce in the Hippodrome? As my dad done maintenance in there in the 90s, and he said there was an infamous bouncer who used to take people in the room and torture them basically. No, I never worked at the Hippodrome. An infamous bouncer who used to torture them. I never heard about him. I know Lenny McLean used to work at the Hippodrome for years. But I mean, there are so many different bouncers. I was never somebody who was really interested in the bouncer culture, because there is a culture when you're a bouncer. Yeah, there's a culture where you've got all these wannabe tough guys who work in that profession, and some of them are underworld connected, some of them are just wannabes and loads of steroid heads, loads of failed boxers, failed MMA fighters, there's all kind of different characters in that world. You've got people who just do the job as a stopgap, like me, because I never did bouncing thinking this is going to be my career. Hell no, I saw it as a stopgap to get somewhere else. But there were bouncers in there when I was doing it, and that was their career. You understand? They took it serious. And so those guys would have their ear to the floor. Those guys will be listening to the grapevine about this bouncer over here, that bouncer over there. You understand? All that kind of thing. I never cared about any of that. I found it all really petty and sad. And maybe it was my ego at the time, but I felt like I was going places. I felt like this is a stopgap job with a bunch of, wannabe tough guys. I ain't trying to prove nothing. I'm just trying to keep myself safe and go home, make my money, go home. Whereas all these other guys were out, or a lot of the other bouncers were out to prove themselves and all this kind of nonsense. So yeah, I never really kept my ear to the ground in terms of what bouncers supposed to do what, where. All I knew about was mainly the bouncers in the companies I work for. But outside of that, I really didn't pay no attention, to who's doing what, and it didn't interest me. I found the whole bouncer culture like really just petty and sad. A bunch of people who mostly are failed tough guys, basically. Because if you're a real tough guy, you're going to be a professional boxer. You're going to get to the top if you're a real tough guy, or in MMA, or whatever the case may be. So failing that, you got a bunch of people as bouncers who aren't going to make it as tough guys, who aren't going to make it really as gangsters. Because why would a real gangster be working on a nightclub door? You understand? Like maybe way back in the days, you might have got bouncers working on nightclub doors, but in my generation and beyond, no real gangster is going to work on a nightclub door. I mean, you're going to get people who are affiliated with the gangsters, basically hired help, but they're not really in the gangster inner circle, the nightclub bouncers. Do you understand? Unless, the only exception I would say was the bouncers who were selling drugs, basically. But even then, it was only certain bouncers in some clubs that were selling drugs. Only certain bouncers. It wasn't like all of them. Yeah, not usually anyway. It was a certain number of them within the club that would sell the drugs. And that's all they were there to do. They weren't really there to do much bouncering other than making sure other people are not selling drugs as well. You understand? But for the most part, you don't find actual real gangsters working as bouncers. It's wannabes. Henry Atkins says, I heard your bars on the Patreon site was very good. Are you pursuing the music game as a rapper? Nah, I'm definitely not pursuing the music game as a rapper. I was once upon a time in my 20s for a little bit, but I make music from time to time just as a hobby, just as stress relief, just as a creative endeavor. I don't look at it as something I'm going to make a career out of or anything like that. But hey, if I did a tune and it blew up, so be it. But that's not the goal I'm going for. I just make music for the art of it at this point, because I enjoy it. Sometimes I enjoy making a beat, and very occasionally these days, because I don't really write anymore, but very occasionally if I do write, I'll enjoy making a track. The one thing which put me off being a recording artist was recording itself. Like recording music, some of you guys who have never done it before might not realize that recording music is tough. It is boring. It is tedious. Oh my gosh. Recording music is a horrible process. And not only was I recording, but I was also engineering. And I wasn't just engineering for me. I was engineering for, a few other people. So yeah, the whole process was long. Didn't like it. And that's what really put me off pursuing music, was the recording process. Because even if you got somebody else to engineer it, just recording alone is long, you know. Because I was always a perfectionist. I always wanted to get my cadence exactly right. I always wanted to get my backups exactly right. I always wanted to redo the track and do it this way and do it that way. You're only going to be good at anything if you're a perfectionist like that. And I always was a perfectionist. I'd always want to redo verses and redo this and redo that. That's why most of the music that I ever made, I never even put it out. I put one mixtape out, and I had some features on other people's mixtapes, but that's all. The rest of the music, which is dozens, if not over 100 tracks, I never put it out because I was such a perfectionist. I had a quality control, and I felt like this ain't strong enough, that ain't strong enough. I ain't doing it. I'll have to redo. I'll keep certain songs on the back burner and say, okay, when I find a way to make this song work better, or a different beat, or a different way to do the chorus, then maybe I'll release it. But in its current form, I don't want to put it out. So yeah, I was always a perfectionist, and the process of recording, I just found it so tedious. It's horrible. It kills your creativity. Like, anybody who has ever been a recording artist, they might be able to relate to what I'm going to say. But it gets to the point where when you write a song and you really like the song, once you've recorded the song, you've been through that process of recording it, you can get tired and sick to death of hearing that song. Particularly if you're mixing and mastering your own music. I know they always recommend you shouldn't mix and master your own music, but particularly at the time when I was trying to save money, and also I knew how I wanted my music to sound. When you have heard that same track hundreds of times because you're mixing and mastering it, you get to the point where you are sick to death of hearing it. You understand? And that's another thing. It just kills your enjoyment when you have to record. It's such a tedious process, which I never enjoyed. Abs Boxing TV says, have you played Red Dead Redemption 2? Your thoughts on it? Yeah, I've played about 2 hours of it, and it hasn't hooked me so far. I'll be honest. It hasn't hooked me so far. I haven't gone back to it after playing the first 2 hours. I've got to the point where you reach the open world bit. Because you know the first couple hours of Red Dead, it's not open world. It's like a linear type story or linear type gameplay. But then you reach the bit where it's open world. And from there, that's where I stopped playing. Because it just didn't really hook me. And to be honest with you, I'm one of those people who has never really been a massive fan of Rockstar games for the past couple generations. Like on the PS3 and on the PS4, I haven't really been a massive Rockstar fan. Back in the days when there was GTA San Andreas and stuff like that, I was a big fan of GTA then. But GTA 5, what else is there? Max Payne 3, Red Dead 2, Red Dead 1. I mean, they're cool games, and I can understand why people like them, but for whatever reason, their games don't really tend to hook me like that. I eventually finished GTA 5, but it took me a good long while to finish it, and that's not because it's such a long game. It's because I kept putting it down, and it just felt tedious to me. I think because in an open world game, I think it's more difficult to construct an immersive narrative because there are so many distractions in an open world game. And there are so many NPCs. There are so many just random people walking around who you can't really interact with, and you know that that's not a real person, if that makes sense. You know that is just an NPC who's going to say a few number of lines, and that's all they're going to do. So in a way, I kind of feel like it's a bit of a false world that you're maneuvering through when you play a lot of open world games. Yeah. So that kind of breaks the immersion for me, when you know that the people are not really interacting with you. So yeah, I'll probably pick up Red Dead Redemption again. I still got it. I mean, pick it up as in put the disc back in my PlayStation and try again in a bit. But so far, it hasn't really gripped me. Oh, sorry. Yeah, DJ Slicks. I did clock a bit earlier that your screen name is Boxing 365. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Oh, Devon Sinclair says traditions like Christmas and Easter, etc., are all designed to keep poor people poor. It's a business and nothing to do with the birth of Jesus. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting when I lived in the Middle East. Their religious holidays, Ramadan, Eid, they are much more about the actual religious element to it. Don't get it twisted. There is a commercial element to them as well. Ramadan and Eid, well, more so Eid than Ramadan. Obviously, Ramadan's about fasting and all that kind of stuff. But during Ramadan, they would break their fast and they would have frequent feasts, basically, every day with family, and they'd cook all kinds of special food and all this type of business to break fast every evening in their family homes and whatnot. And so that led to an increase in consumerism during that time. And obviously during Eid, the Muslims will give gifts and stuff like that. So there was an element of consumerism to it, definitely, but it wasn't as much as Christmas in the West. Like Christmas in the West is just like the religious element to Christmas was lost a long time ago in the West. Now it's just an excuse to give gifts and have a good time, spend time with family, eat a lot of food, and that's all good. There's nothing wrong with being with your family and enjoying some time off work and all that kind of business. It's just the religious element. I think a lot of people at this point think there's no point in including the religious element to it because it really has. Nobody's thinking about Jesus. Nobody's thinking about upholding the standards of Christ during Christmas. Let me not say nobody, but most people are not. So, I can understand why people have an issue with Christmas, but I don't celebrate no religious holidays myself. So I take Christmas. Well, I used to. Being self-employed now, I don't have to worry about taking time off or anything like that. But back when I was employed by other people, Christmas for me was just a great time to have off work, So it's good for that reason, and people should be happy for that reason, if nothing else. All right, let me get to some more questions here. Okay, DJ Slick says, Hatman, speak more in the friend zone. It'll be interesting to hear your perspective. I will never be the type to just friend a girl for the sake of it, but many guys can be patient to pounce. Ab says, don't you think it's funny how life in general, guys are obsessed with proving themselves to other males, acting tough, moving all hard. They try and stunt in front of the other man. It's about time. It says, I remember you saying the custom model style is very difficult to master. Why is that? G-Man Boxing says, Hatman, your thoughts on controlling relationships. I'm seeing firsthand with a co-worker who's getting it off her boyfriend. She seems miserable. I've always felt control leads to violence in relationships. Okay, D says, hope you're enjoying the holidays. Yeah, you too, brother. Did you ever get into binge watching of box sets? Okay, like Power, Luther, etc. No, I'm not really into box sets. I'm not really into the series like everybody else is. Like most of my friends, they all watch series and stuff like that. I don't really watch none of that, I don't really watch series and all those kind of things. Gennady Alvarez says, Hatman, is university a money-making scheme now? Yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, they show you their intentions through the fact that now you have to pay to go to university. Because back in the days, they used to pay you to go university. Tony Blair scrapped all that when he came in. Because when I went to college, they would give you a student grant. Now, to be fair, a lot of people used to take advantage of the student grant. A lot of people used to enroll in college, they would get the grant, and then they would drop out of college just to get some free money. That was happening a lot. There were a lot of people abusing the system, but there were also far more people who were not abusing the system. Far more people who needed those grants. And they wouldn't just give a grant to anybody. You had to get your parents' income, the kind of house they needed certain information from your family and from your household before they would give you a grant. Yeah. But it just shows you the different mentality. They used to pay you to go uni before. Now you have to pay to go uni. Once you have to pay to go there, the whole dynamic has changed. Now they're going to try and entice you in whatever way they can to go there. Now they're going to invent all kinds of obscure courses which they know are going to be useless just to get you in there, just to get your money, just to make you feel like anybody can go uni. There's a place here for everybody, doing the most obscure course you've ever heard of. It's called widening the net, to make sure they get money off you. John 99 says, what race do you usually go for? I've only ever been out with black girls in my life. Never been out with a mixed girl, never been out with a white girl, never been out with an Asian girl, never been out with an Oriental girl, never been out with an Arab girl, never been out with a Turkish girl. I've only ever been out with black girls my whole life. Abs TV says, what do you think cheats more, men or women? Well, in most societies, men cheat far more than women, and certainly with the older generations, men cheat a lot more than women. But with the younger generation, I would say women cheat just as much as men, and a certain demographic of women, I would say, cheat more than men. And the demographic of women I'm talking about is certainly above average to good looking women. Maybe even say average to above average women, in terms of looks. Under a certain age, I would say, just from what I've observed and heard and seen and whatever the case may be, I think they probably cheat more than men do now, because women can get sex so much more easily than men can. So easy for a woman, or any woman, unless she's ridiculously ugly, any woman can go out today and get sex today if they make themselves available. Any woman can do that. Unless she's really ugly or there's something all kind of wrong with her. 95% of women can go out today and get sex. No problem. I mean, you've seen these stories, right? In the media, where they have these women who literally don't pay for a meal for 6 months or a year because they go on Plenty of Fish or one of these dating websites and they get these guys to meet up with them and pay for their lunch every day. This goes on. Okay, what are these guys doing? These guys are trying to sleep with those girls. Now, if you're a guy, you try and do that. You try and go out and get a different girl to pay for your meal every day. You'd be lucky to even find one girl to pay for your meal, much less a different girl every day. So girls are in a position of unprecedented choice and unprecedented availability in the modern society. And so, yeah, girls of a certain demographic, I would say, cheat more than boys these days. They're being encouraged to be promiscuous. They've got all this choice. They feel powerful. A lot of them have become narcissistic because of social media. I mean, look at, I was at somebody's house earlier on today and they had the TV on. That's the only time I watch TV, when I'm at somebody else's house. I don't own a TV. And they had the TV on, and every single music video, the girls would dress like strippers. I mean, if you didn't know, if somebody brought you in a time machine from 1970 to today, and you were sat there where I was sitting watching them videos, you would think that these are like all strippers in the videos. That's how they would dress. Or you would think they were hookers. They are so over-sexualized, it's unbelievable at this point. So girls are being influenced by that. Again, a certain demographic of girls, over-sexualized. They know that they can use their sexuality to get what they want, and so they are doing so. Yeah. Yeah, women can cheat and be sly. I think men get caught more cheating than women do. That's why I would imagine anyway, that men are easier to catch. Women, when they want to lie, oh my gosh, they can tell barefaced lies and get angry at you when you catch them lying. I'm sure guys do that too, but women seem to have an ability to be far more cunning and manipulative than men when it comes to lying, DJ Slick says, Hatman, what do you know on the moon matrix and how it affects women's periods, the energy and the vibrations? Well, they say that the gravitational pull from the moon is what affects women's menstrual cycles. Now, the moon matrix, that's something that David Icke talked about, right? Where he says that the moon is some kind of, originally he said a transmitter, because David Icke talks about, for example, this physical reality being a projection. And even quantum physicists have postulated this theory that what we experience or what we think is physical reality is just some kind of hologram, a holographic projection. And David Icke came up with this theory that the moon is part of how this projection manifests. That the moon is some kind of projector, but then he changed his stance and he now thinks that Saturn is projecting this holographic reality on Earth and it's channeling it through the moon. So the moon is some kind of, whatever you want to call it. It bounces the signal from Saturn through the moon and to the Earth. I don't know. It's an interesting theory, but I don't really think he has much evidence to back it up. I can't say it's definitely not true. This is a crazy existence. We don't know what all this is. So who knows? But it's not really the most substantiated theory I've ever heard, put it that way. And apologies if I'm not getting to everybody's comments here, because there are a lot of comments. John99 says, Hatman, do you believe in God? I am agnostic when it comes to God. So I don't believe and I don't disbelieve. And the reason I don't believe or disbelieve is because I've got no way of proving that God does exist, and I've got no way of proving that God doesn't exist. A lot of some religious people are religious not because they were born into the religion, but because they had some kind of religious experience. You see, I've met a couple people like this, and they have had profound experiences which led them to becoming religious. And so I can't look down upon them. I can't dismiss their experience because I've never been through some of the experiences that these people are talking about. People having near-death experiences and then coming back and saying, okay, now I'm religious. Well, how would I feel if I've been through a near-death experience? I've never been through a near-death experience, so I don't want to dismiss the way they feel and the way they think, because I ain't been in their shoes. But yeah, to answer your question, I'm agnostic about God. I don't believe and I don't disbelieve. I can't prove the existence or the non-existence one way or the other. So I don't come to any judgment on whether or not God exists. And as far as controlling relationships, G-Man Boxing talked about that. Some girls, this might sound weird, but some girls want to be controlled. And, I remember when I was growing up, we had these neighbors move in next door. And the guy was abusive to the wife. They had a couple moved in. I think they were married. And they had kids. And the guy was abusive. He used to beat the woman and stuff like that. And my dad and the other neighbor on the other side went and spoke to the guy. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, to tell him, yo, this has got to stop. You understand? But once the beating stopped, he was still very controlling and all this kind of business. And so sometime when the other women in the community were speaking to the woman, all right, they would tell her, why don't you just leave him? And she would come up with a whole heap of reasons and excuses why she couldn't leave him. Some women, as strange as it sounds, they want to be controlled. Even though it's a traumatic experience for them, they get addicted to the trauma. It's so, as a man, for most men, you can't get your head around why somebody would do that. But a lot of women, for one, right, this is maybe a slightly different thing, but a lot of women like drama. Or there's a certain type of woman anyway where they like drama. They like being in arguments with their man. They like being in arguments with people in general. They act like they don't like it. They act all hostile and aggressive. But somehow, some way, they get some kind of rush out of being in, stressful situations which for most people would be stressful, and they would try and get away from anybody who brings them kind of situations upon them. But there are some girls out there who they like it. They like the rush of fighting and fussing and arguing and having this aggressive man domineering. Some girls like this business. As mad as it is, that's the way it is. And that's the impression I got from that neighbor. Like, that's how she was. She liked, some part of her liked the domineering husband that she had. It's really messed up, but some women are like that. No, not all women who are abused or dominated like it. Of course not. Some of them have had their self-esteem broken down to such a degree that they feel like they can't go anywhere else because they're worthless. But then again, some people might say that's an addiction of sorts. So I don't know. In a country like the UK, there's really no excuse, or in most instances, there's no excuse for a woman staying with a very domineering or abusive man. There's no excuse, because this is a society which gives women everything they need. It gives them carte blanche in a lot of instances. So there's really no excuse for a woman to stay in an abusive relationship, as far as I can see, in this country. What for? You're going to get loads of help. If you can't get it in your community, or you can't get it from family and friends, you can get professional help. So, I don't want to downgrade people's suffering, but there's definitely help out there. This is not a society where domestic violence is openly accepted. It's not. Quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. So, oh yeah, talking about friend zone. Let me talk about that, and I'll get to Graham Coleman's comment here as well. Okay, Graham Coleman says, my missus is Polish, and very often with Eastern European girls, they are loyal and they are not on to stunting and going out drinking all the time. They're into their families. Yeah, and that's something I've said to people on Patreon before in previous podcasts. If you like white girls, you might want to look at an Eastern European girl rather than British or American or French, whatever the case may be. You might want to look out to Eastern Europe, because you'll find a lot more girls there who are more traditional. You understand? You'll find dare I say it, Christian girls, a lot more traditional Christian girls out in Eastern Europe. And the reason I say Christian is because I know in the West people are very anti-religious these days, but a Christian girl is more likely to have virtues about her. Now, not all Christian girls, of course, but and you know what, in the Western Europe at this point, certainly in the black churches, in a lot of them, that's the worst place to look for a virtuous girl. But in more traditional parts of the Christian world, if I can call it that, like in Eastern Europe, you're going to find a lot of virtuous women who are Christians. You understand? And that's where, even if you ain't a Christian man, even if you ain't a practicing Christian, you might be able to pick up a Christian girl who's going to be homely and trustworthy and all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, Britain is supposed to be a Christian country, right? So you don't really have to do much if you're not really religious. But yeah, I definitely hear that. Even if they're not necessarily religious, in Eastern Europe, there's a lot more chance that you're going to find a girl who has some quality to her. Oh, okay, where was the... Oh yeah, the friend zoning thing. Friend zoning. Friend zoning. Some guys will stick around when a girl friends. See, friend zoning is like a new term, relatively new. But yeah, some guys will stick around when a girl friend zones them, and they will keep trying their luck, sometimes for years, until they eventually get what they want. I've never had that kind of patience. Yeah, but in a way, I admire, Yardies, right? Jamaicans, specifically the Yardie Jamaica, the one from Kingston, all that kind of business, Spanish Town. Those guys are so unbelievably persistent. They make being in the friend zone look good. And what I mean by that is, and not all Yardie guys, but a lot of the slick Yardie guys, they will try it on with a local female around the way for years until they eventually get that female. But when they're trying it on with a female and getting turned down, it never dampens their spirits. They'll remain happy and jovial and be joking. And after a while, the female starts to laugh and warm to them, sometimes over a number of months, sometimes over a number of years. And eventually, maybe when she split up with her latest boyfriend, she thinks, you know what? Let me give this Yardie guy a chance. And before you know it, he's blowing her back out. Right? So I used to admire them Yardies who would be consistent, persistent. I used to think, wow, man, like you got patience. You looked at this girl as a target, and obviously they've got a load of other girls that they're dealing with, but they will do this. They will go through this process with several different girls at once. Yeah, obviously unbeknownst to these girls themselves, they don't realize the guy's doing it to loads of other girls. Well, some of them do, some of them don't. But they'll make the girl feel special. They'll make the girl feel like they really like her, and they won't come across as desperate. They'll just come across as happy all the time, and they'll stay on the girl month in, month out, sometimes for a few years, and they'll eventually get through. And they'll have a few girls who they're working on in this way at any one time, But me, I never had the patience for all that. And I never liked the attitude. If a girl try to come with some funny attitude, I'm done. Because if she can have an attitude now, she can have an attitude down the line. Let's say I eventually get with her. I also don't like being in a position where the girl feels like I need her. Do you understand what I'm telling you? If I have to chase this girl and pursue this girl, she's going to think like I need her more than she needs me. That she's giving me a chance rather than me giving her a chance. I don't like that dynamic. I prefer the dynamic where I am giving you the chance. You understand? I am the man. More often than not, I make more money than you. Okay? I'm a go-getter. I'm in control of my life. And so I'm giving you the privilege of coming into my life. And I'm seeing if you are qualified to stay here long term. That's what I'm seeing. That dynamic works much better for me rather than chasing. Once you chase a girl like that, then you're in a position, if you're in a relationship, where a lot of the time you feel like you have to constantly prove that you're still worth being with. Whereas I put it the opposite way. You understand what I'm telling you? Where they're the ones who have to prove it to me, not the other way around. And I'm not somebody who takes the piss either. You know, so some guys will take the piss. I don't really take the piss. I'm generally a laid back character. And as long as I don't get no attitude, I'm not really that demanding of the girl. And because of that, and because of the kind of girls I tend to choose, they're very generous to me. Do you understand? Because I'm not overbearing, and I don't, you know, say do this, do that, wear this, don't wear that, who you with. Like I don't do all that. Okay? I just let them know early on, if I'm not happy with the way you're carrying on, you ain't gonna hear from me again. So just know that that's what the dynamic is. Yeah, I will disappear on you. My number will change. So just behave yourself. And normally that's enough. So the whole friend zone thing, I don't want to dismiss it and say that it's always bad being in the friend zone. Depends what kind of guy you are. Depends what your goal is. If your goal is just to smash, then being in a friend zone, you know, you might have a master plan. But then again, there are those guys who are what we call today simps, guys who don't have a master plan, guys who are just pathetic and chase these girls and buy them stuff and become besotted with them, and the girl is not interested at all. And these guys are all in their feelings and what have you. Yeah, there are some weak guys like that, and they just make the situation worse for everybody because they're going to gas that girl's head up and make her feel entitled. So there are some guys like that, but there are other guys who play the whole friend zone business very well. And they get what they want at the end of it. So that's what I'll say about friend zones. Luke B says, "Hat man, we can go speed dating together." Graham Coleman says, "Hat man, did you ever play the Metal Gear Solid games? The story is for the higher mind, and it's crazy how all the crazy stuff that goes on in the world were predicted by them." Yeah. I never actually played Metal Gear Solid The Phantom Pain until a couple months ago when I got it on PC, and I was really impressed with the opening hour or so of Metal Gear Solid The Phantom Pain. And of course, yeah, I was a big fan of Metal Gear Solid from the first game on the PS1, on the original PlayStation, because it obviously deals with things like super soldiers, nanotechnology, mercenary companies, and all kind of occult stuff that goes on in Metal Gear Solid. Yeah, I was always very interested in Metal Gear Solid in the early days, but it got so deep actually, and I like deep stuff, but it got so deep in some of the subsequent games that I kind of lost touch with it, because Metal Gear Solid obviously made by Hideo Kojima, and when it comes to Japanese, that whole Japanese manga / anime world, they go way deep into the rabbit hole when it comes to their storylines. I remember playing Metal Gear Solid 4, and every single boss you came up against had some ridiculous backstory. You remember in Metal Gear Solid 4, like right before you fight the boss, Drebin, you know, the black guy looked like Cisco with blonde hair, him or some other character in there would give you the 411 on the boss you're about to fight. Or maybe it was the boss, or maybe it was after you fought them. I can't remember. It was either before or after you fought them. You get some massive big cutscene which gave you the lowdown on this boss and the story, and it was always some over the top story. Like they got raised by wolves and their parents were murdered at the age of, you know, when they were only 2 years old, and they crawled out of the crib and you know, went off into the woods, raised by wolves and then adopted into a super soldier program, and it's always some crazy shit. It got a bit too deep for me, Metal Gear Solid. It definitely ahead of its time in terms of the themes and the stuff they're dealing with, but it got a little too sci-fi and too out there even for me to be able to keep up with it. But I understand the concepts they're dealing with, of course, the nanotechnology, the super soldiers, the geopolitics, the corruption, the bribery, shadow organizations, the occult stuff that goes on. Yeah. I definitely hear what you're saying. Jason Brown, big up. Big up Kieran in the house. Kieran says women control men with good pussy. I mean, some men. I've never been controlled by that. To me, sex is something like I can take it or leave it. Right? And truth be told, I've always found it to be overrated. Yeah, that's the truth be told. Like it's overrated. I sometimes I feel baffled by people when they say that sex is this incredible thing and oh my God, it's like the best thing in the world. Is it? Like after you've had sex a few thousand times, like, is it really that great? To me, it's like an itch. You need it. Like when you have an itch, you're dying to scratch it, innit? You're dying to scratch it. And when you scratch it, it's satisfying to scratch it. But once you've scratched it, you've forgotten that you even had an itch in the first place. Them ones. To me, that's how sex is. It's like, yeah, it's cool at the time, but it's not something that leaves a lasting, profound impression on my life. It's just a mechanical need. It's a itch that I need to scratch. But other than that, it's not something that any woman has ever been able to control me with or do anything to me. No. The thing that in the past has made me start looking at a woman and thinking, okay, I actually like this girl could be wifey, is when they start acting like a wife. When they start washing my clothes and cooking my food. And when I was out there at work, they would even come to work. If I didn't have my food with me that day, they would have cooked it and then they brought it to the workplace. When girls start treating me like that, that's when I start maybe going a little soft. You know what I mean? That's when they can start getting their way with me a little bit. And I had to watch that. When they start treating me a bit too good, cooking the food and, that's where the whole saying comes from, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. But when a woman give me good pussy like that, it's a good pussy is like, you get that anywhere. I mean, I don't want to say good pussy is common. It's not. It's fairly rare. But, when I've had it, it didn't rock my world. Do you know what I mean? It's just like whatever. I mean, it probably depends on the kind of person you are, and it depends on the kind of women you've had and how many women you've had. Some men are going to be less easy to impress than other men. You understand? It's going to be harder for women to impress certain type of men. And I'm the kind of man, it's hard for a woman to impress me. Very hard. Yes, Luke B. Yeah, once you smash one girl, they're pretty much all the same. I mean, seriously, like who in here, when you lost your virginity, felt like it was some deep, profound experience in your life? Like losing my virginity was just a relief. That's all it was. Losing my virginity, I was like, fuck it, thank God. Thank God, now I'm part of the club. That's all it was. There was no profound experience or anything like that. And obviously, once you've had sex for a number of years, thousands of times, however long it is what it is. It's like a scratch. I mean, can you remember it? I want to ask you guys, are there times in your life, more than maybe a handful of times, when you've had sex that you've remembered it for years and years and years? I can count on one hand the number of times I had sex where it was truly memorable, so I haven't forgotten it to this day. I'm talking about the actual sessions I can remember today, I can count on one hand the number of times I've had it where it was like, you know, I remember it years later. All the other times, I can't remember. Do you know what I mean? Because it was just like whatever. BG London says, I grew up with persistent dudes pursuing women. Thank God women find me attractive and like my swag. Yeah, it helps a lot. You ain't got to be as persistent. Okay, Aried says, Hatman, I've seen a lot of SJWs, social justice warriors, complaining about sex in games, but relationships in most games is a choice, not forced. Okay, Tapiwa says, what trainer would you like to see AJ with? What trainer would I like to see AJ with? I would say Tommy Brooks, Shadid Saluki, someone like that. Yeah, one of the American trainers who have had a lot of experience with heavyweights. You know, the guys who have been around, the Eddie Futches of the world, the guys who have trained people like Riddick Bowe or been associated with heavyweights like that. Kieran Sylvester says, did you watch the Trap Church documentary I sent you? Not yet, bro. Can you resend me the link? In fact, if you can drop it in the chat, maybe I'll watch it tonight. D says, were you ever into the arcade video game culture like Street Fighter 2, the games you had to play on road? Yeah, I was big into the arcade video game culture. Big into it. I played Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting. There was a whole heap of different versions of Street Fighter that came out in the arcade box. There was the Ninja Turtles games. Remember the Ninja Turtles arcade games? There was like Ridge Racer. There was Double Dragon. There was Mortal Kombat when that came out. There was Pit Fighter. I mean, there was a whole heap of different games in the arcade that I used to play. Yeah, I was big into the arcades back in the days. But they don't really have arcades now, do they? Don't really have it no more. But back in the days, in the late 80s through the 90s, they used to have arcades. And yeah, I was big into arcades. That's where everybody used to go. You know, teenagers and whatnot. We used to go into the arcades and hang around in there. I was never really any good at video games in the arcades because it was mostly fighting games and stuff like that. I was never really very good. So I used to hate it when I'm playing Street Fighter. You know them ones where you're playing Street Fighter and you're trying to get as far as you can, and then someone else rocks up next to you, usually some older boy who you can't say nothing to him because all the boys around my age, they knew not to do that. But when an older boy rocked up next to me and he puts a pound in the slot, I'm like, oh shit. Now I'm gonna have to come off the machine because this guy's gonna whoop my ass in this game and I'm not gonna be able to get as far as I wanted to go. So yeah. Graham Coleman says Streets of Rage was never an arcade game. Was it not Streets of Rage? It was some game like Streets of Rage. If it wasn't Streets of Rage, maybe it was it Final Fight then? Maybe it was Final Fight. Final Fight is similar, innit, to Streets of Rage. Maybe it was Final Fight had like Hagar in it, right? That guy with a moustache who looked like Magnum. Yeah, I know Streets of Rage was a Mega Drive game too. Streets of Rage 1 and 2. Yeah, maybe it was Final Fight I'm thinking of, but it was definitely one of those kind of games that we used to play in the arcade. Merry Christmas, Big Dave. Jason Brown says, can Wilder improve? I think he's reached his ceiling, to be honest. I think he might be able to improve from the first fight with Fury if he's more calm in the rematch. But in terms of technical improvements and stuff like that, I think he's reached his ceiling. Yeah, I think he's reached his limit. Yeah, Final Fight, we used to play that with a few different people. And the Turtles game, was it called Turtles in Time or something like that? I can't remember what it was called. But there was a bunch of you that you would be able to play the Turtles game, and that game was the one back in the days. Turtles in the arcade. And Pit Fighter. Pit Fighter had crazy graphics for the time. I remember Pit Fighter. Okay, Graham Coleman launching a gaming channel. What kind of games are you going to be playing? Devon Sinclair says, what do you think about the simulation theory here, Hatman? I think it's very possible. Well, yeah, in terms of the universe being a simulation, I mean, what do human beings do? Human beings always try and copy nature, don't we? We always try and recreate nature. We try and recreate our physical reality in a virtual form and even in a physical form. So, for example, the helicopter, the inspiration apparently for the helicopter came from somebody watching the seeds fall off a sycamore tree. You know, it's the sycamore tree, right? The one that's got the seeds that have got like a propeller shape. So mankind get their ideas from nature. Now think about it. We now play video games. Video games is mankind recreating our own physical reality in a virtual form. Now we've even got VR that takes it to the next level. So maybe subconsciously that's what we're doing with video games, is we're recreating what we're actually living, which may be a virtual reality of some sort, a projection. It would make sense. Maybe we're doing it subconsciously. Maybe some people are in the know and they know that this is a projection. They know that this is a simulation. Who knows? It's very interesting, you know, thinking about these kind of ideas. Wow, okay. Darrell Carter says, have you heard anything about KSI and his brother allegedly asking you underage girls for nudes? No, I haven't heard anything about that. Oh, X-Men, of course. Yeah, I remember X-Men, Graham. Yeah, I remember X-Men on the arcade. Yeah. See, we used to roll there deep, and there'd always be a few of us that would play these arcade games. Not always, but a lot of the time, we go arcade and play these multiplayer games. Yeah. I remember X-Men, Turtles, you know, a bunch of other games. Don't think I played the Simpsons one though. Kieran says, Hatman, your thoughts on Kendrick Lamar? I think Kendrick Lamar is, I mean, I haven't listened to loads of his music. I do have his first album, Good Kid, Mad City. I like a couple of the songs on there. I think he brought something different to most of the other rappers of his generation to the game. So I think he's talented. I definitely would say Kendrick Lamar is talented, but he's not really on my vibe, you know? So for me to really like an artist, they have to be someone who has a vibe that I can really relate to. And Kendrick Lamar's vibe, although I understand where he's coming from and I respect it, it's not really my vibe. You understand? So I think he's a good artist, but I can't say I'm his biggest fan. But there was a couple tunes that I've heard of his that I did like. You know, just from a sonic standpoint, I like the way he put them together, the way they actually sounded, his flow, the cadence, the beat, all that kind of stuff, I thought was cool. Particularly from Good Kid, Mad City. And I guess that's old school now, right? A lot of people would say that first Kendrick album is old school now. To me, that's new. That's how old I am. Yes, big up the one Sinclair again. To this day says, we live in a world dominated by the West and their form of technology. I would imagine in another timeline, another form of technology would exist similar to Wakanda. I mean, you never know. I mean, people say that the Egyptians had a different form of technology, a form of technology that we don't understand today, a form of technology that wasn't about, you know, that wasn't digital. Big Dave says, Hatman, more dirty goods and crazy titch. Dirty goods and crazy titch. Crazy titch is still doing life, right? He's still doing about 35 years. And that murder that Crazy Titch got locked up for, a friend of mine, a pretty close friend of mine, lives on the estate where it happened. The estate where the guy got murdered, all right, the thing that Crazy Titch is, and Crazy Titch, from what I've always heard and what my friend told me, Crazy Titch was not the trigger man. He was not the man that killed the boy. But it happened in Chingford on an estate called the Chingford Hall Estate. Yeah, that's where the murder happened. And the guy who got murdered, who was a DJ, I think he was only young, he's only like 17, 18 years old. His family, apparently, from what I heard, was some old school London gangsters, or he had certain old school London gangsters in his family. And that's why Dirty Goods, after that incident happened, he basically went into hiding. Because these old school London gangsters were not happy at all about his alleged involvement in that murder. So yeah, he went missing for a good while. But from what I heard, Crazy Titch was not the person who pulled the trigger, didn't do the murder. But that's how it is. If you are present and you don't snitch on the guy who did commit the murder, you can be charged just like him with murder. So yeah, Crazy Titch is still locked up, and he'll come out when he's God knows how old, like 55, 60. Big Dave says, have you ever seen the video of him and Dizzy? Yeah, I saw that. That was like Lord of the Mics, wasn't it? Double Jeopardy. Yeah, but Crazy Titch was, like his name implied, a bit crazy and a bit reckless, and he got himself involved in all kind of situations which he didn't need to get himself involved in. You understand? Like, when you start making money, whether it's from music or whether it's from, whatever the case may be, you need to distance yourself from the streets. You can't still be hanging around with the same people, getting into the same kind of situations. You can't be doing that. You can't be doing that. You're supposed to be doing music to get a better life for yourself, not to go deeper into the streets. And you're not supposed to do that. That's called hustling backwards. So yeah, you get an opportunity to make money and get out of your environment. Do not get caught up in shootings and all that kind of stuff. Cut everybody off who you have to cut off. I remember back in the days, I used to watch the morning program, The Big Breakfast. Remember The Big Breakfast? Was it Channel 4, Big Breakfast? With the best days of Big Breakfast was with Johnny Vaughan and Denise Van Outen. They were like the perfect double act, because they were always dropping sexual innuendos about each other and stuff like that. Now, not the Chris Evans one. Chris Evans was original, but when Johnny Vaughan took over, when Johnny Vaughan and Denise Van Outen had their first run as co-hosts, when they had their second run a few years later, the magic had gone. But when Johnny Vaughan and Denise Van Outen had their first run as co-hosts of The Big Breakfast, they were on fire. They were on fire. Yeah. And Johnny Vaughan, Denise Van Outen, and Johnny Vaughan used to give all the crew names. Like, there was one guy he called the Cable Casual. And a bunch of other guys, they would give, one of them, I think he called him the Carpet Monster. And yeah, they were on fire. They were on fire. The Big Breakfast. Graham Coleman says, my 6-year-old niece got an iPad today and I questioned it, and my brother told me the school have pushed kids to get one for them to use all the school apps. I think that's dodgy, pushing tech on 6-year-olds. I think it's dodgy too. Definitely. BG London says, Hatman, you go to Sega World Arcade in the West End in the 90s? Yes. In Trocadero. I was always down Trocadero. Yeah, Trocadero was the place back in the days. Hang on, Sega World. Hang on, was Sega World the one that was in Trocadero, or the one that was? Was there one by Hamleys? I'm forgetting. I'm mixing up. But the Sega World was definitely in the West End. Was it Trocadero or was it Hamleys? Somewhere around the West End that Sega World was. But I definitely went there. Jason Brown says, "Did you know? I guess you mean, did you know any of the PDC click from Brixton?" Yeah. I know some of the PDC guys. Area says, "Happening. I've been watching a lot of O'Hara Davis YouTube videos, and I get the impression it's not hard to lie to him." Yeah, maybe. I get the impression from watching some of O'Hara's videos that he has totally fallen out of love with boxing, and he's probably not gonna pursue it for that much longer. That's the impression I get. Devon says, do you have any experience with psychedelic drugs? Regardless if you have or haven't, what are your thoughts on them? I have never experienced psychedelic drugs, but I think it's very interesting. Like, for example, when people who have taken ayahuasca, they usually experience similar things, even if they don't take the ayahuasca in the same place. They will often have the same kind of hallucinations. And the same goes for people who take iboga, which is an African plant, which is even more powerful than ayahuasca, but even more traumatic to actually take. They say that when you take iboga, the physical experience is so traumatic that most people can only take it once in their whole life, because it's such a physically traumatic experience. And when people take iboga, they see dead people. Like in The Sixth Sense, I see dead people. Yeah, they see dead people, or what appear to be dead people in their hallucinations. So how can this plant make everybody see the same thing? How is that possible? Is it a situation where that world actually exists? What you're hallucinating, when you're hallucinating, you're tapping into a different dimension of reality? How else do you explain everybody having this shared experience where you hallucinate the same kind of things? You seeing dead people. What's that all about? I do find that stuff fascinating. It is fascinating. Jason Brown says, "I know Simon." All right. And also says, "Where can O'Hara Davis take his boxing career?" Yeah, the PDC guys, I know several of them. I'm not really tight with any of them. There's one or two of them that I'm not really cool with, truth be told. But, PDC is the past, and it is what it is. And PDC, I'm not going to say it's not my era, but when PDC were at their probably strongest, I wasn't really in that life anymore. Do you understand what I'm saying? I wasn't really involved in that kind of environment anymore. So, like, for me, my era was more like the 28s, the younger 28s, all that kind of business was more my thing, in terms of when I was around them kind of people and living that kind of life. And obviously those PDC guys were around, but they weren't really the top boys in Brixton. Do you understand, at that time? The top boys in Brixton were the 28s, younger 28s, and all that kind of business. But yeah, where can O'Hara Davis take his boxing career? Well, he can't take it nowhere if he's not serious. If he's falling out of love with the game, then he ain't taking his career nowhere. He ain't taking it nowhere. But as I've said many times, there are plenty of British fighters who have less talent than O'Hara that have managed to win world titles. So it comes down to desire. That's what it comes down to. If, again, no disrespect, I always name drop this guy, but no disrespect to somebody like Darren Barker. But if Darren Barker can win a world title just by plugging away for years and years, trying hard, someone like O'Hara Davis could. You know, he's more talented. But in boxing, the intangibles are just as important as the tangibles. The tangibles are your physical ability. The intangibles are your desire, your heart, your confidence, your ring IQ. That kind of stuff. Your determination. Jones 20, big up. The real Carter. Jaja Souls, yeah, Jaja, Naja. Blacker. Okay, yes, Jason Brown. Yeah, all right. Beaver as well. Name dropping. All right. Jones 20 says, what's your views on Fury and Wilder getting together to compose a smear campaign against AJ? Drops as well. Jason Brown name dropping. Drops. Quincy. Yeah, again. Fury and Wilder getting together to compose a smear campaign against AJ. I mean, they're doing what they have to do, right? They want to build themselves up to the point where they can go to AJ as equals, you know? So they don't have to go there and metaphorically, financially be bent over. So that's what it's all about. That's why they're on the smear campaign. That's why they're trying to downplay AJ's achievements, because ultimately they want to be making AJ money and they don't want to have to go to him cap in hand, you know? So yeah, that's what that's all about. BG London says, I remember the 28th in the club scene, deep, dangerous times. Yeah, them times, I'm telling you now, I don't care what nobody says, nobody could come Brixton during the 28 days. Nobody could come Brixton. Brixton man, them Brixton youths would go to New Cross, Peckham, all over South London into those raves. Nobody would come Brixton. I'm telling you now, them times Brixton was a no-go area for other crews to come in. I mean, I'm not saying people didn't come in under the radar, but in terms of turning up as a crew, like, yo, we're here, we're from this place, and we're in Brixton, unheard of. That wasn't happening back in them days. That wasn't happening. Brixton had a reputation back then that was, you know, crazy. Darrell Carter says, do you take any protein shakes or supplements? No, never took any protein shakes. Well, tell a lie, I have taken protein shakes in my 30s once or twice after a workout, but very rarely, you know, and definitely when I was in my 20s and I was boxing, I was never taking any protein shakes or anything like that, because I was always naturally big anyway. I always had a lot of muscle mass anyway, so I never felt like I needed to take anything. And I was never really big into weights, so, you know, I was never really doing any of that. All right, Denzel says, I was born in the wrong era. Wish I grew up in the 90s. Yeah, the 90s, there's a hell of a lot that I miss about the 90s, but there was also a lot of bad things in the 90s. You know, definitely it was a lot more violent then. Anyway, peeps, I'm going to cut this live stream short now, and I'm going to take a little break here, get myself refreshed, and I'm going to come back on the boxing channel and start talking some boxing on there with you guys and everybody else, if any of you are about. So yeah, I'll catch you guys in a little bit on the boxing channel if you're going to be about. So yeah, shout out to everybody with me here on Patreon. Hope you guys are having a good day. If you're driving anywhere, drive safe. Try not to drive if you're inebriated, you know? And yeah, I'll see you guys over there. All right? In a bit.